to the council meeting. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda, Brad?
There are none, Mayor.
Any written public comments?
We received none.
Okay, at this time, the next thing on our agenda is public comments. If anybody's here that would like to address things with us that are not on the agenda, we would entertain those comments at this point in time. So come on, give us your name and address.
Okay. We're together here. Can we just stand and talk here?
Come on, tell them hold it.
Okay, here. My name is Ron Morris. I'm currently a Brainerd resident and a business owner, but I have land in Baxter. I've had for nearly 30 years over in the Wildwood area over in the river. I've got a couple lots over there I'd like to build on, and it's overrun with poison ivy and noxious weeds and stuff, and I do have some pictures here. I don't know if you want to pass them around here. Some here. But the weeds, the poison ivy is a real problem there. I'm very allergic to it. I can't go anywhere near it. So I've had these lots for approximately 30 years, and I can't even get back there to even walk the lot to see how I'd lay a house out or whatever like that. So I contacted Adam Converse here with Converse Sustainable Clearing, and it's a earth-friendly gold cleaning business that he's just getting going here. And he found out the city of Baxter does not have an ordinance to allow it. So I guess I'm here to propose maybe the city of Baxter take a look at something like that to allow the folks come in and clean my land up there. So they would, he has more information on it.
Can you explain the process to us?
Yeah, I think Adam would probably be better at that. So I'm just let him go ahead through that. You have a lot of information here.
All right, good evening, council members. My name is Adam Converse. I live in Merrifield, and I represent Converse Sustainable Clearing. It's a regenerative land clearing service that uses goats to address vegetation management in an environmentally responsible and city compatible way. Let me start with clarity. Our goats are not kept for livestock. They do not do any grazing in a traditional sense. They are employed as eco remediation agents brought temporarily to perform specialized tasks on targeted vegetation. They work under supervision within portable fencing systems and are removed as soon as the job is complete. So I've got why are goats better than machines? Goats are more effective against invasive species. They actively target buckthorn, poison ivy, wild parsnip, garlic mustard, and their multi-chamber digestive system leaves the seeds not viable after it passes through. There was actually a study done by the state of Minnesota, because this is getting so popular, and would they be spreading seeds around, through their disposal, and the efficacy of the seeds is under 1%. They destroy overgrown wheat seed banks. These seed banks often hide for years. Goats strip the foliage and destroy dormant seeds via their digestion. Something machines and herbicides can't replicate without harming soil integrity. There's no fuel, no emissions, so unlike brush hogs, mowers, and chainsaws, there's no noise pollution, just quiet munching, safe for neighborhoods. And one of the big things too is there's zero soil compaction from having heavy equipment out there. Under city livestock regulations, what we do is not typically considered animal husbandry. The goats are tools, not pets or livestock. They're in confined, secure, movable enclosures, and they are working temporarily on task-specific sites with handlers present. If your ordinance prohibits grazing animals, livestock, we respectfully submit that these goats are not grazing livestock, but are performing ecological vegetation control like living lawn equipment. Supporting goat-based clarity means reduced chemical usage, quieter neighborhoods, cost-effective land clearing. We invite city collaboration to draft specific allowances for working conservation animals under land management permits. Other cities like Seattle, San Francisco, and St. Paul have done just that and successfully integrated goats as part of the Green City Initiative. So, and I do have, I'm not gonna go over, it, but I did pull what St. Paul uses for their rules, and they seem pretty acceptable in that.
So can I ask, do you bring in a temporary shelter for the goats while they're resting? Or
No.
do you just get the job done in a day, or how long does it?
So, it depends a lot on how thick the vegetation is, how much area it is. Generally, 10 to 15 goats can clear out, a light acre in about a week. I come, if there's storms and stuff, I mean, they're my equipment, I'm gonna protect them. I come, put them in the trailer, either ride it out till the storms come and then release them, or I bring them home and then bring them back the next day.
So if the weather's good, do they just stay there by
Yep.
themselves?
Yep.
It's a fenced area too, right?
Yeah, it's a temporary fencing that I bring out, put out, it's just stakes that go on the ground and the fencing.
Concept.
Yeah,
So you would move the fence around as they're eating, and so they're always contained, they're always,
always contained, yep.
always under lock.
So they go from my trailer, I back as close as I can get, parading where I go. If I can't get close, I run that netting from the back of the trailer to the enclosure. There's no time that they're ever going to get out. If they do randomly ever get out, they're not leaving their friends. They're herd animals. They don't like to separate from their herd.
So the lots that you own, are they bordered by other homeowners, or you?
There is another house right here, and there is another house right here, but this is a open lot here. These are the two I own, correct?
And have you spoken to the homeowner? I'd just be curious how they would react to.
To what homeowner, I guess?
Well, which lot did you say?
The
there's
2
a
and 3
homeowner?
are what I know.
Correct, but
Yeah,
I.
but I
so
have,
you know that.
I know of the whole, I lived in this development for 25 years, I used to own all the lots there at one time. So I do know the other homeowners, but it doesn't affect any of their land, the fence just goes up.
No, I understand that, but I would just be curious what their reaction would be.
I guess I haven't contacted them, I don't
I would
see
be
why it would be
curious.
an issue, but I certainly could, I mean, I know these people, so.
Yeah, I would be curious if they
Okay.
had 2 lots and a bunch of goats shooting, I would wanna know.
Well, I'm certainly gonna let them know, yes, yeah.
This might be an inappropriate question at this moment, but I'm gonna ask, and not to you two, but to city staff. Have you had any complaints about goats doing this in the past 5 years in the city of Baxter that you're aware of?
Have we had any complaints about?
Complaints
people
about I've got a
using
problem
goats
with
for
it.
business in the
Yeah.
last 5 years?
Yeah,
No, we've never had anyone ask
Okay.
or complain.
all right. The reason I asked ties to their question about neighbors. There were goats in the neighborhood about 2 or 3 years ago, and it went off without a hitch. So I had no idea you couldn't do it, and a neighbor a couple blocks away had them for probably 2-3 weeks. And so I just wanted to note that it's been done, but yes, I didn't know we had regulations that would, or a lack of regulation that would cause it to be unallowed.
I think it's kind of a question for Josh, as far as the definition of how they fit within our definition.
Yeah, I think what I would state is, we were contacted, I think the answer wasn't, no, you can't do this. It wasn't that, it was, we don't have an ordinance that addresses this business concept. Not to say we can't head in that direction, that's the wishes of the council. What we have is a animals ordinance that ranges from dogs and cats to what we classify as farm animals, which we do allow farm animals in certain parts of the city with certain approvals, and other areas they're not allowed. So it's just that we don't have an ordinance that specifically addresses their approach at this time. That's what I was.
Well, Ron had contacted me after he talked with you, and I knew we were going to be talking about the chicken ordinance and having made some adjustments to it. And thought that it might be a good time to maybe do the same thing, or include it in whatever changes we were making, so.
Yeah, staff really just has never evaluated that request before, so certainly willing to go down that
state parks before. And they're not like, you kind of expect them to be like the friendly petting goats. They're not. They really don't want to pay attention to you at all. They just, you kind of want to go up and be like, hi, and they're just munching
There
away.
must be a story there.
They just don't want anything to do with people, so.
They're just eating.
Yeah.
They're working.
Just kind of curious, in other neighborhoods, when you've done this, have you heard comments from the neighbors at all, or, you know?
The only thing that I've really heard from people is positive stuff. They're happy to have it. And if it's at your house, you can serve the goats, you get to have goats for a week. So it's more, they're liking it because they don't ever get to see goats work. They're taking pictures, sending to their grandkids and stuff like that.
Okay, anybody else?
I have a lot of poison ivy at the Jack Pine property, and I've had it in the back of my head that I would really like to bring in goats at some point. I've got some extra free cash laying around, so wasn't even aware that it wasn't allowed, so.
Well, and like you said, it's not that it wasn't allowed, it was, the stoppage was the no livestock law. And that's, goats are obviously considered livestock, but mine are working goats, they're not, like I said, pets or animals.
I'd say I'd be all about talking about it, and I think I'm intrigued by the concept. I've heard many people are happy with it overall, and if we can put in a reasonable set of rules, that'd be great.
I agree.
Me too.
We probably have a couple of parks that might need some.
Anything we can do to get rid of poison ivy, because I'm severely allergic to
Yeah,
it, so.
goats with my family.
Well, that was, we were trying earlier this year to get into the arboretum, because they've got a pretty good invasive species problem in there. And the part that we were going to go into was that Baxter portion, so we set off on that, but that's definitely something that we will be going after, is going for grants to get everything cleaned up at the arboretum too, so.
Well, thanks for bringing it to our attention. It'll definitely be discussed here. Sure. Thanks for coming.
So can we ask staff to bring back like model suggested ordinance
Sure.
change?
I don't think you'd have one from St. Paul there.
If you want to leave that one, it's something we can do.
Sure, it's
Start
all
looking at.
Just a question of curiosity. How does the cost compare to a typical way of getting rid of weeds versus the goat?
It's roughly about the same.
Okay.
You know, for having someone come in with machinery or just having the goats there. Obviously, it's gonna take a little bit longer because they just don't have to clear it, but there's no soil disruption, there's no pollution, you don't have to listen to machinery, once in a while you hear a little pop, that's about it.
Conventionally, trying to get rid of poison ivy is nearly impossible around it. I mean, I've had that house for 20 years, and every year out there trying to get more and more of the poison ivy, takes forever. I don't know what chemicals in the ground anyway.
So what keeps it from coming back? Will it come back?
It'll come back,
Yeah.
but each time, so if you've got a real heavy infested place, it's about every 3 or 4 years you're gonna have to breed on it.
Okay.
But because they're killing the seeds, it comes back less and less and less each time.
Gotcha.
Do they go after the roots at all, or just the stuff
No.
above the ground?
Just the stuff on the ground, things go for the roots. If you want to turn it inside out, then you get pigs in there.
Yeah, poison ivy is a perennial, so it's a woody perennial, and you've got to get it 3 years in a row for it to, at least with the Roundup, you got to hit it 3 years in a row for it to step back, but it seems to always come back again, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Anybody else got something you want to talk to us about in the public comments section here? Seeing that, we'll move forward then to the consent agenda. The following items are considered non-controversial by staff and are recommended to be read and passed in one motion. Any council person, staff, citizen, or meeting attendee can request one or more items be pulled from the consent agenda. And the item will be pulled and addressed immediately after the passage of the consent agenda. Otherwise, the following items will be passed in one motion. Number one, approve city council work session minutes approve city council minutes from July 1st, 2025. Number 3, approve the payment of bills and finance report. Number 4, approve the code enforcement coordinator / building inspector job description and place position at grade 7 of the ASPE pay schedule. Number 5, approve the shredder, trucking, and excavating Inc. partial pay estimate number 1 in the amount of $62,620.65 for the 2025 Clearwater Road Dog Park project. Number 6, accept the Utilities Commission minutes from July 2nd, 2025. Number 7, accept the pedestrian crosswalk request, Mary Street to Cherrywood Drive intersection with Inglewood Drive memorandum. Number 8, accept the request for stop sign placement review, intersection of Edgewood Drive with Novotny Road memorandum. Number 9, approve the R.L. Larson Excavated Inc. partial pay estimate number 11 in the amount of $10,023.33 for the 2024 South Forestview Area Improvements Project, municipal project number 4138. Number 10, approve Grants Affordable Excavated Inc. partial pay estimate number 2 in the amount of $395,976.52 for work completed on contract B related to the 2025 water supply improvements, wells 5 and 6, municipal project number 6011-45040. Number 11, approve the CCS Contracting Inc. partial pay estimate number 3, final in the amount of $3,000 for the lift station number 15 reconstruction project. Number 12, approve the Knife River Corporation North Central partial pay estimate number 9 in the amount of $13,948.26 for the 2024 Mill and Overland Full Depth Reclamation Improvements Project, municipal project number 4424. Number 13, adopt resolution 2025-059 for accepting the bid from J.R. Furshey in the amount of $2,589,186.15 for the 2025 Design Road and Trunk Highway 371 Stormwater Improvements Project, municipal project number 4135. Number 14, approve the WITSIF proposal for construction administration services in the not to exceed amount of $444 for the 2025 Design Road and Trunk Highway 371 Stormwater Improvements municipal project number 4135. Number 15, approve amending the budget for the 2025 street crack sealing contract in the not to exceed amount of $260,807.20.
Please pull that, Mr. Mayor.
Bill 16
No, 15.
or 15?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 16, adopt the 2026 budget calendar. Number 17, accept planning and zoning commission meeting minutes from July 8th, 2025. Number 18, adopt resolution 2025-058, approving variance to allow a deck within the required 100-foot setback to Birch Lake for property located at 6148 Highland Scenic Road. Number 19, approve city administrator to renew Heartland Animal Rescue Team contract. Number 20, adopt the revised capital assets policy and the lease and the SBITA accounting policy in accordance with GASB. Number 21, adopt resolution 2025-061, amending assessment of certain properties for the 2018 Cypress Drive Improvements Project, number 4027.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Cross, second by Tappan. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number 15, bold.
Number 15, this came before the Utilities Commission, and we had some cost overruns in the crack sealing contract, mostly due to material costs being higher, and the fact that this year we had more road cracks open up than in past years, and we had that's kind of been a cycle. You know, it may go 8 years, and then all of a sudden, either due to the weather, frost, or whatever, every crack in the city opens up. The reason I pulled it was, we're amending it to increase the amount to cover most of the streets, but we didn't increase it enough to cover all of the streets we were going to do. So that's my concern, that we've been, yeah, and it's too bad Trevor's not here to talk about this, but, you know, we talk about, our annual maintenance on every street is to seal the cracks, because if you don't, you lose them. But yet, okay, our price went up, we covered it with, cost savings out of the public works budget to reach a certain amount, but we didn't do them all. So, I'm not sure where we want to go with that, it's just, I'm a little concerned that we aren't doing them all, because that's kind of the first line of maintenance with what we've been doing.
So, you know, I read the information too, but I didn't memorize what's the shortage, what's the difference, how much we're short. Remember?
I'm not sure what we're short to finish all the streets, I'm not sure that was a number tonight.
I don't believe that that was in the materials that were shared with the Utilities Commission or reflected in the minutes.
So that would be good to know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's done. So if you brought it back to do the remaining streets, it would be, you know, you'd end up paying the mobilization costs. But, you know, if we have a policy to do it, then we should do it. Kind of the way I look at it. Yes, it's gonna cost us some money every now and then, but, you know, public works is a volatile thing. You know, some years you plow snow, some years you don't. Some years you plow more snow than you've ever plowed before. And, you know, we have to ride those downs out too. Unfortunately for crack cement, this is one of those years we'll went up on us for various reasons.
Yeah. Well, what's your suggestion? We have staff come back with the number, what it would take to, because you're right, it's gonna cost us to bring somebody back, and we would need to know all those numbers.
It would be good to know what it would cost, and then you can make an informed decision whether
Right.
it's worth doing or not.
Correct.
And it may not be worth doing. But I'm
But
just
just-
bringing it up because,
Well, to go on record about what streets weren't sealed.
I don't know if that was in the memo or not.
It wasn't, that's one of the questions that I've written down to be able to make sure that we are able to share with the council.
So down the road, we know the
Yeah,
street.
I don't know if it was one road or three, you know, is it an eighth of a mile, is it
It's
2
a hand-
miles, is it?
From what I remember, it was a handful of streets that,
Well, to me, it's a valid point, and I was thinking the same thing as I was reading it, how far do we, how does this put us back, you know, so I think it'd be good to know what that number would be, and then, like you said, we can hammer it out then, so.
Is that something that needs to be like planned for like future, like a contingency? It's like, okay, if we do have a bad year, this is what we can, you know what I mean? If we know that every few years, we got a bad year for cracks.
I think Trevor did that by pulling money out of different pots within the public works budget in order to cover it. But, as far as, you know, it's called a Mayor's Fund.
I'll give you everything I got.
No, I don't know how you do that. Jeremy would have to throw out some suggestions on what's allowable for contingency, and, you know, we end up with positives and negatives all the time, so.
It did kind of seem like it was a combination of a bad winter and also higher costs. So this is one of the material.
Yeah, it was kind of a double whammy this year.
Yeah, typically it's about 30 to 45% of the roadways get addressed, and this, I think Trevor had shared with me, it was somewhere near 80% of mileage was under our jurisdiction and addressed, so I believe it's reflected in the RCA.
We just, we had a little discussion about this same thing today, that, so, you know, we're able to, you know, pull some funds out of different things and make it work, and what concerns me is, what did we just do that
then to move forward, I would make a motion to pass this budget amendment and then look into the remaining streets that are done.
Since you brought this up, though, I want to note, and with the concerns you just mentioned, so the work's already done, right?
Right.
So at this point, maybe it would be worth taking a moment we can approve the number, but specifically not all the places the money came from until we know what it does to all these other budgets, and we've had a little more of the conversation that you just suggested we have, in that the bill's gonna get paid, wherever that money comes from. I guess maybe Jeremy would tell us we can't do it that way, and it has to be approved out of each pot right now. But if we're doing something that's already been done, I just thought maybe bringing that up is worth note.
I would second your motion.
Okay.
But you have, your motion was to accept it.
I would second his
The one thing that I would keep in mind is when we do have cost overruns, we do look to try to keep a balanced budget, thus making it, if it is the directive of the council is to reassess based upon what's being proposed, I would still move forward with this, and we can always make changes and adjust the budget.
Okay, so it's all fluid enough that it doesn't matter, we just need to approve the change in the overall.
I think we would change it, and based on the conversation we had, we make the adjustments back to the original, then we make the adjustments back to the original, and make the identification of where the additional 80 some or whatever that dollar amount, can't do math in my head that quickly right now, looking at those numbers, but, you know, if we were to make an adjustment to say it comes from somewhere else, then we'll do it at that point, but let staff go through answering the questions in that context. And
In that case, I think I would second Mr. Cross's motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to, that was it, right? So moving to other business, number 22, adopt ordinance 2025-009, approving amendments to the city code to revise the law enforcement program.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. As the council is aware, back on June 16th, we discussed the code enforcement program and what the approach was moving forward. And we took the council's feedback, and so we're back tonight with several things. We have the job description on consent, and we have this ordinance, which includes a number of different changes to the city code, as well as a resolution amending the 2025 fee schedule. The ordinance and the fee schedule together will give the city new tools to establish an improved enforcement program. So as we post a position and move forward, we'll have a better tool set to implement an improved program. The ordinance specifically includes the ability to use an abatement tool with changes to our abatement ordinance, as well as amendments to a citation approach. The fee schedule was amended to include citation amounts for first, second, and third offenses. The ordinance also includes some other changes from a couple technical perspectives, allowing us to have more language on just basic property clutter. So there's some improved language there that will help us be able to enforce those situations, as well as being able to enforce tall grass and weeds through a fining approach rather than abatement, which would hopefully will increase efficiency and hopefully quicker compliance with landowners that are mowing or handling weeds. So that's just kind of a general summary. There's a lot in there. Interested by putting this on other business to see if the council has any questions or concerns as we attempt to move this forward. Obviously, there's more steps moving forward as we get going with the program. There'll be other opportunities for more discussion, but this includes 3 kind of big steps to us being able to get going with the new program.
I have several questions, comments, some of which are maybe purely academic, and you can tell me if there's no point in messing with things. I get a little bit into extensions. Following service of the compliance letter, the city shall attempt to work to resolve the violation. It seemed so weak that, like, attempt to work to, just from like an English language perspective, I just wanted to know, like, maybe we could just say attempt to resolve the violation.
Sure.
Just because it opens the door for kind of some weirdness there. I did have some questions under 2.1C on the 30-day due date and the way that we're looking at compliance letters and bouncing things back and forth. My concern was simply regular mail is an option there, and we end up in the way the world works these days here in our area. I don't know that you can guarantee that the mail gets to people fast enough that that is always going to be fair. I understand we have to have a certain rule and regular mail makes sense, but you know, if it takes 10 days for mail to get to somebody's house and they only have 10 days to respond to a certain situation, things can get tight. So I just wanted to note that, particularly on the 10 days to request a hearing. So if your mail takes 10 days to arrive, if they mail you back a response, that would work well. Just a purely academic point on, at some point in there they reference the Office of Administrative Law Judges. I tried to find that, and I think it's actually called the Office of Administrative Hearings, just a point of edit. And then I wanted to know if anybody had an example or how we would discuss clutter, personal property, and unsightly. I like to know the definitions of things before I move forward.
Yeah, those are all good points. I think the Office of Administrative Law is from the city attorney, so,
Okay.
and they researched that and the options there, but we can certainly, if the council's comfortable making those minor amendments to get that, but I think that's an easy one to fix. And if the council so wishes, we can look at all those amendments and changes as well. I think there are other tools in other sections in terms of being able to post the door too, but I do see what you're saying about the timelines there. So we can certainly look at that and bring back amendments, or if the council's, I think we kind of want to move forward. I think that's the council's wishes, and we can certainly bring back another amendment at a future council meeting if you want to get this at least started, and then continually work on making some of those improvements. That was an option I would offer, just kind of on the fly here. And then the last one on clutter, I think oftentimes with code, fair point, I think we just have to work towards that. I think one of the toughest things we have with the complaints that we're having that we can't do anything about is personal property clutter, and it's a really tough thing to define. Our code amendment, that language you see in the nuisance section, is our attempt to improve upon that, so we have a little bit more language to go on, because as of right now, we don't have a lot, unless it's construction materials or something like that, and I think a lot of the concerns that I'm hearing come to my desk as part of code enforcement has a lot to do with just personal property clutter. There's a lot of properties where I think people are frustrated, people in the community are frustrated about clutter. But I think you're right, there's always room for improvement, it's just a tough thing to define. But more than happy to make changes and reconsider and try to work harder to make more clearer definitions always, so open to that.
Thinking about the mail, does registered mail get delivered more quickly, or is there a big expense for that? I mean, it could be tracked for sure on date of receipt.
Yeah, we've used that before to varying success rates, but, and we have used that as a tool as well. It's definitely something we can consider as well. Posting on doors is also a really effective tool. I think that's in there at some level as well.
Correct.
So, think we want to be open to any and all tools. I know in talking with the city attorney that when you talk about due process, go above and beyond. Don't just post on the door, send a letter, you know. Talk to people, I mean, do everything you can to try to give them ample opportunity to be aware of things. But it is sometimes challenging, because, yeah, I think certified mail is an effective tool to at least somehow get a receipt that they've seen it, because, you know, if you mail a letter, I didn't get it, you know, that kind of thing too. So. But staff is certainly open to looking at all of those comments.
I think the word clutter is an interesting one, and probably means different things to different people, but, and probably others of you too. I've been invited to people's properties to walk, and clutter takes on different, could be car parts, it could be brush, logs, trees, whatever. And as we're walking through and they're showing the animals are jumping out and scaring all of us, you know, and so that's their concern, is what's habitating, is that a word? Becoming a neighbor that they don't really want. And so I'm not sure what the exact definition of clutter is, but I've seen what I think clutter is, you know, and it's not a good thing, I know that, but.
But I think when you read what we propose to change in totality, it does establish a pretty solid theme. Maybe not perfectly defined, but it's no person may place, permit, store, allow, maintain, or leave machinery, implements, equipment, clutter, or personal property worn out or discarded material, household appliances or parts or tools, building materials, tin cans, glass, furniture, mattresses, box springs, crates, cardboard, tires, or any other unsightly debris, brush materials, or unsheltered storage upon an open space area of any premises located anywhere in the city, the accumulation of which may have an adverse effect upon neighborhood or property values, health, safety, and general welfare of the public. Obviously, we're going to apply some values set to that. It's not a perfectly defined thing, but there's a lot there of examples to kind of get you towards a theme. Obviously, if you have and clutter also relates to kind of an amount. It's like, it's not just one thing. If you have a cardboard box outside in your yard, I don't think that meets that. There's a spirit and intent to that when I read it. And obviously, there's an appeal process to be contested if that's being used unfairly. We would want to take an approach that's fair in that regard, and obviously, it would have to be something that's fairly unsightly, I would think. But defining that, I'm always open to locking it in as tight as we can. It just makes the job easier for those doing the enforcement.
So this ordinance, is it saying that everything in your yard should be enclosed inside or inside of a fence? Or, I mean, we're looking at visual issues, I'm assuming. So is it, if you can see it from the street, it's considered clutter? If it's behind a fence, it's okay because nobody can see it?
Yeah, this is just one section in the code of a change that we're proposing to make, just because we don't have anything that relates to generalized clutter, and it seems to be a common complaint that we have that is coming into our city. So, and it's one area we don't have much for tools. We do have some other stuff in the zoning ordinance about storage of property, like, wood piles and things like that. There's other areas for some of that other stuff, personal property items, and where you put your boat, your trailer, and where that should be in the yard, and what setbacks it should be. There's other sections for that, but there's nothing about generalized clutter. And I think a lot of the complaints we get are about generalized clutter, too many items out in the yard. How do you regulate that? It is a tough one, but it is something that we're hearing frustration about in the community. No.
city wants it visually blocked, or the city wants it put inside? Or is there, I mean, you just can't throw it out there without saying how you fix it.
Well, this is saying it's a nuisance.
Okay, how do I fix my nuisance?
You have to get rid of the clutter.
Which means,
Those examples of cardboard and tire and crates and box springs, if you have that in your yard, we have a code enforcement officer, they write their letter and say, these things need to be removed, it's personal property clutter.
okay,
So we write a letter, if they elect not to remove it, then we implement the fines, all based on.
and
the
those
code
items
enforcement.
you threw out there, I'd say were junk. Okay?
Yeah.
Lack of a better word in my mind, but you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So I may be, I don't want to drag this out too long, but you know, I may be an entrepreneur, inventor that hoards certain things so I can build my artwork. Okay, somebody next door might go, I don't like all that stuff, so I'm gonna make a complaint. So my question for you is, can I fix it by putting up a fence so my neighbor can see it? Is that a remedy, or is the remedy I have to have a clean yard that's mowed, because we have a weed ordinance and a tall grass ordinance?
Right, the remedy of putting up a fence to screen it isn't in this specific clutter provision.
Well, there's no remedy in that clutter.
Right, no, I'm just trying to answer your question.
Right, but then.
Not at this time, we could add it and change it. So, at this time, it doesn't say, you're good if you put up a fence, it just doesn't say that now. We could look at that.
What if you're a collector of gas station pumps and you have 100 of them in your backyard? Is that clutter?
And I just want to be real, that's the very difficult thing about code enforcement, right? So, that's the difficult thing, because we have examples of people that say, I'm a collector, I collect these things, and other people say, I don't want that. And
Right.
the neighbor's property, it's unsightly, and there's too much of it. So that gets at the heart of the difficulty of code enforcement, right there.
Or I set up my shed to look like a Sinclair gas station from 1950, with a couple of pumps and an old truck down there. Some people might consider that not appropriate
Yep.
in town.
That's my concern regarding unsightly in particular is I'm hesitant about, you know, box springs in your yard, crates, cardboard, tires are one thing that I think everyone can agree on. You're piling your garbage in your yard. And then when you get into things that are unsightly, I get very nervous about, because what we're talking about is using the power of the government to enforce visual preference standards regarding unsightly 1950s gas station style art or whatever it might be. Those are the edge cases that worry me. And I don't know. I know that's maybe where discretion has to come in, but that's why I asked the question.
Well, and that's where I was gonna add is there's some level of discretion in that context. You know, the concern, and we'll just use the gas pumps. You know, are they rusted out? Are they there? Are you just doing it for parts to restore to sell others? I mean, it can quickly become a junkyard. You can find it in a junkyard or a salvage yard. And that's where there is that discrepancy is that needs to be taken into consideration. We can go down the rabbit hole of every little scenario.
Oh, sure.
In that context, so there's gonna be some level of discretion that needs to be utilized. And common sense or reality that needs to be taken into consideration by the department and by the staff in regards to those things, but evaluating and making that determination is the big key for the individual or the department has to, does it fit the definition?
But it's likely an impact on people's property values,
Uh,
there are some views that get put towards that and if the code enforcement person takes that too far in his appeal, then the city would, lose in those instances, so yeah.
Okay, so you talk about the appeal process. What is the appeal process here?
anyone can contest.
And how do we,
It's-
where does it go to? Does it come to us?
It's the administrative law judge for, appeal process, so that goes to a separate body that reviews it.
So we don't even get to oversee it.
Not how it's structured, but, it's going to a entity that is
Doesn't know.
there to, aid local units of governments with these types of appeals. That's an independent judge that looks at those factors from both sides, as directed by our city attorney.
I do want to note that that was a conversation we had early on in the discussions of code
Right.
enforcement in regards to do the traditional debate where you come through public hearings and get into the testimony of.
That was the discussion. We were taking a long time just to get one property cleaned up because we had to go to planning commission and council. And the idea was to try to do something a little bit quicker and more efficient. It's hopefully less costly too, so.
I just wanted to be noted that the discussion of going that route isn't something that staff had unilaterally just made the decision and we're gonna make a change. It was based upon a conversation about a little over a year and a half ago about when we were creating the position in the program. As to which route we wanted to focus on, and it was the consensus of the council that we would move in the citation route.
And I would also just note, the city is, the way this code is structured, the city has an ability to implement those other paths forward if the city wishes. So, if the city wants to have that go to the council, the city can choose to do that. Think of it as tools in your toolbox, as all are on the table, as well as any others as well that might be appropriate. Abatement's a tool, fining is a tool, it could go to the city council as well. That's still an option.
Okay, to put this mildly. If we have a city employee that gets overzealous in his or her enforcement of code, and we start receiving problems and, people have to go before this administrative judge as opposed to coming before us and us saying, oh, we've got a systemic problem here. It's not just a single person lot that's the issue. It's, we've got an overzealous employee. At some point, we need that ability, or somehow we need that ability to tone that down.
Yeah.
And I know we've had some issues like that in the past, and we,
Would that be a supervisory issue with that employee?
well, it could be,
Well, it also-
supervisors aren't getting phone calls, are they? Necessarily.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm a supervisor, but I've got my share of messages and calls.
I know what you're saying, Mark, but that's that man's job, and it's that man's job, to deal with those issues if they're becoming commonplace and something.
Yes. And I always thought the buck stopped right there, Mr. Mayor.
You think so?
there's a cost to those appeals, so if we're getting a lot of appeals, that's gonna have to be before the council as well, because that will cost money.
Sure.
The only reimbursement comes if the city is successful with the appeal. They have to, the person who didn't do the
So,
cleanup or whatever.
So if you're telling me if I do get a fine and I don't think it's right, and I go through the appeal, and this third-party judge who knows where they reside, says, oh, no, I think the city's right, and then costs me more money, then
If the city pays up to $2,000, that's how it's structured.
that's gonna really come back and bite us. Yeah.
Open to any suggested changes.
I'm just-
Council wants, I'm just
Trying
trying
to
to.
get my head wrapped around it.
Yep, I get it.
You know?
It's a lot.
And Zach brings up some good points, and
it's our goal to work with people. I mean, the department, this position is going to be in community development department, supervised by the building official, but then also by me and up through the command, all the way to the top of the team. So it's not like the employee who's doing code enforcement wouldn't be, it's not like our eyes aren't going to be closely upon how this is going. Because we're taking a step to do something more than we've done in the past regarding something will be potentially controversial to residents, both neighbors and people who have issues in the yard or businesses, depending on what we're enforcing. So,
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said an overzealous code enforcement person, and that has me nervous as well, especially because of the number of things around this city right now that are definitely not that definitely are in violation of some sort of code in one sense or another. I mean, if you really want to make a loop around town and count how many shipping containers there are around the city of Baxter, and the metal structure, carport type things that somebody's got a boat parked underneath. If somebody starts making rounds through the neighborhoods and throws a sign on everybody's door saying, "Hey, you got to take care of this," I think you're going to get some significant backlash from the community. And there may be things that we need to address as a council that maybe our codes are a little bit tighter than they should be once we actually start enforcing them.
be surprised if we aren't there as well. Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that, but it's just like something that we're gonna have to make up for us.
And we're happy to bring forward just, more work session discussion on the council's wishes with the approach, in terms of how we want to be a respond to complaint organization. Are there certain aspects that you want to change codes on right now? And that's kind of a next step. We wanted to get this first step done where we can get going on kind of the core basics, but understanding there's more discussion to be had.
I agree with Mr. Sundberg's statement, as well as just, I will lay out a couple of things that, like, big picture concern when you say complaint driven. I do have real philosophical concerns about code enforcement through the person whose eye towards unsightly is the most extreme. And I personally am really uncomfortable with the things that can go wrong, or the personal property right potential infringement you run across when there's a slice of the population who thinks a lot of things are unsightly. And that worries me. So I just want to say that out loud as my first philosophical issue is simply, I hope that the supervisor in the department supervising the person at hand is okay with saying to a complainant, your complaint is not valid. As much as that might hurt your desires for us to go lay down the government's power on your neighbor because they have an unsightly object in their yard, we're not going to do that. That's just one, I'm sure that instance will come up someday. And the only other issue that I was more concerned about in this current iteration, which I don't want to bog the process down. If we need to get the system up and running, that's one thing, and then iterating and changing is good. I was a little concerned about the loss on appeal, is it feels a little bit potentially punitive to say, if you lose your appeal, you will pay city costs up to $2,000. I know that's probably a good fiduciary choice on the city's part, but as Mr. Cross noted, I think that's going to really, really make that appellant angry.
Yeah, putting your concern to a few different words. I would hate to see the code enforcement becoming between neighbors. targeting somebody, they're being punitive to one certain group. But if you got a PUD in the city, it should be up to some. You know, PUD is a complete rule on what you're supposed to do on your property, commercially, some residential. And I had a statement back there that I was getting tired of making rules and we weren't going to enforce them. So this is a step in the right direction in enforcing. But from the other side of it, there should be some kind of mechanism to make sure that the rules that we put in place, i.e. through PUDs or conditional use permits or whatever, are being followed. And if it's only complaint driven, how many people in this room even know half the details and a percentage of what PUDs we put out there over the years, or approved over the years? So, it's a step.
I think that's a fair, like, theme of how that new hire should be guided is start with those things that we've actually specifically requested in specific instances that people know and sign documents saying we agree with doing this thing. All of that, but, yeah, agreed.
You know, I would just add, if the city's not comfortable with, you know, with contestants, if the administrative law judge finds the city is successful, you can strike that out. You just have to recognize that based on the city attorney's review of the administrative law judge process, you know, an appeal would cost between $2,000 to $3,000 for the expected 8 to 10 hours needed to hold that hearing. You know, that would just end up being city, you know, whether, you know, because when we get to that appeal process, it could be at any point in the process that they choose to appeal it. It could be after a first citation, second or third, it doesn't matter. You know, they could say, I would like that appeal, I don't agree. So there are real costs to doing this, no doubt. But again, the whole baseline of taking this approach with finding and having an appeal process was to try to have a process that we could do enforcement more timely and more efficiently.
Josh, I'd just like to make a couple statements here. Lest anybody goes away from this meeting or reads about it and comes up with the idea that we're doing this to be punitive and we're looking to be heavy-handed and all the things that could be said. It's just not true at all. And most of this is, in fact, in my case, all of it has come from the public. I didn't make this stuff up. This is stuff they came to me with. I've been on their properties. And in fairness to the staff, this stuff is notes they've taken down through this has gone on for 2 or 3 years. Notes that they've taken from people that are bothering our residents, our people, that are taxpayers too. And it's been very, very frustrating. I'll just give you an example. There's one in the neighborhood over, it doesn't matter where it is. They've got the cutest, nicest little place, and they keep it up. But they've got trouble on both sides. And it's really bad. And they have called me. I've been over there. Josh has been over there. And their answer up to this point is $6,000 worth of fences on both sides. And they shouldn't have to do that. And the problem is, when you look through the book, there was nothing enforceable other than the tall grass. And so there hasn't been a hook or meat or whatever to hang anything on here to make this work. And so that's where this is birthed. This isn't just from a council or staff sitting here. How can we mess with people's lives? That's just not the intent, and that's not where this is rooted. And these people are concerned about the potential market value. How am I going to sell my house? This particular party would like to do that, but they just don't think that it would be wise right now to try that. And so there are genuine concerns from the rest of our group, our residents, that are definitely concerned about this and are making these comments and want us to do something to help them protect their, and I know property rights. We had one in my neighborhood for years, and every time say something to him, he'd hold up the property rights flag and tell me to get lost. And I understand that, but our property rights kind of end where the next property rights begin, you know, and so somehow, you know, we need to get along and try to work out some things that are amenable to everybody. But you know, when a whole neighborhood is looking nice and one isn't, who's right? Everybody else or this person's right? I just think that you know, we have an obligation to everybody to help them to protect their values and also their property. Now, I think we need to get moving, and if it means that, you know, we pass this tonight with the understanding we're gonna keep bombarding it with changes, I'm okay with that too. But I think that, you know, this has gone on for years and years and years, and we don't get anything done, and we haven't had anything with teeth in it to hold people who really need to be held accountable, and that's all I got to say. And having said that, I don't disagree with anything that's been said here tonight, don't get me wrong. But I do think that, we need to move forward. I think people want us to and they expect us to.
Thank you. The people I've heard from, one of my responses has been, well, we're in the process of hiring a code enforcement person. Well, when's that gonna happen? It seems like everything takes so long. I said, I know, but we're working on it, just be assured. So I agree, I think we need to move along.
And that person isn't hired yet, that could take an awful long time, I understand that. But in the meantime, if we have something that's really out of line, the current staff, you know, could step into it. So I'm gonna send it up a flagpole and see who salutes here, but I'm gonna make a motion to accept number 22.
I'll second.
Motion second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Stay tuned, Josh. Council comments, Connie?
Just one brief one. Our granddaughters give 2 thumbs up to the 3 parks that we visited over the 4th of July. They loved the new equipment, and Whipple Beach was the best they've ever been to in their whole life. I understand this coming from a 5-year-old, but either way, it speaks volumes.
Zach?
I'm just gonna reference our conversation just there and just say thank you all for a good conversation. And I chose to vote against the motion, but I appreciate the ability for us to disagree without anybody getting wild and going
It's not one concept.
Yes, I appreciate a good spirited debate.
Sure. Me too. Patrick?
Yes, if you haven't heard the word yet, the skills park at the Northland Arboretum is open. So there's a small fee just to make sure that we can, you know, maintain funding to keep the park well maintained. They're also running a fundraiser because we ran out of dirt and geotextile materials, but this will be when it's fully completed, it'll be one of the only 2 wet rideable surfaces for bike parks in the state. So when it rains, you can't be out on the trails in Cuyuna. You'll be able to come to Baxter and at least get some skills work done. And the kids were having a blast out there. This was great. The Cuyuna Mountain Bike Crew and the Brainerd Mountain Bike Crew were out there, and it was a little soft to start, but by the time they got it packed on by the end of the night, there was a kid that was doing 180s on one of the jumps, and it was or 360, sorry. It was amazing to see. So yeah,
The big one by the side. Yeah, it's great. Things are really, really happening out there. It's all good. Mark?
No comments tonight.
I've said mine. City Administrator?
Yeah, just a few items, Your Honor. First is a reminder that the improvement hearing for the Linwood Clearwater Brentwood Circle project is this Thursday at 6 p.m. The MidDOT open house is next Tuesday. There are 2 times. It's 1 to 2:30 and a 4 to 6. Looking for feedback on the preferred design. Another reminder, the first meeting in August is actually on Wednesday, August 6th, due to the 19th night. So just a reminder that it's Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday. And then last but not least, in conjunction with what Councilmember Sundberg had indicated, before you is a letter from the Northland Arboretum Executive Director, Trevor. He sent the letter last week that gave the council acknowledgement that the Northland Arboretum received designation of the Greater Minnesota Regional Park on June 26th. And in conclusion of that letter, he thanks the long-standing partnership between the city and the Arboretum. So